Alrighty. Welcome back, everyone, to Table Talk. I'm your host, The Bedluck Gamer, with my co-host, Glue Boy.
Hello.
On this podcast, we talk about all things tabletop. And it's been a minute. It's been a little bit. It's the beginning of this year has been pretty pretty rough, to say the least.
It's been something.
But I can now say for sure, nothing is planned in my immediate future. Everything should be getting back to normal. And we have a lot to talk about today, honestly. A lot to talk about today. A lot's been going on, especially with Paizo recently. And you know what? Gaming in general. So I think we're going to have a fun chat today. But as always, we always chat around, wait for people to hop into the chat here. So if you're coming just for the topics of the day, try hopping in around the 25-minute mark if you're watching this after the fact. But with that being said, what have you been up to, Alex?
A lot of recovery from just weird fatigue issues, which have all been sorted after a weird sense, or just weird amount of time where my body decided, sleep doesn't work anymore. What if I just didn't recover or I don't know, have restful sleep? And then other than that, just getting into boxing around the same time, which made, the whole part of not sleeping and my muscles not recovering a little worse. Because it's hard being a living weapon when your muscles aren't, doing the thing they're supposed to do. Isn't getting better. My forearms are fucking dead, dog. Just doing anything was ass. God, punching is wild.
It is. Yeah, as someone who's punched a lot in their life, doing it for the first time especially is a little rough.
It's very cool, though.
Glad you're enjoying the Dread Striker build. It's honestly probably one of the most basic but efficient builds in Pathfinder. You are just an utter menace at no major cost.
Which class is that one for again? Is that
Fighter?
Oh yeah, I mean that sounds about right. I was about to say that sounds like a fighter build, and that's what fighter is for.
Yeah. It's also one of the best builds for soloing an enemy, pretty much. Because the whole point is just to keep an enemy on the ground, and then if they try to stand up, you just hit them again, because, fighter. So...
Yeah. Oh, you're good with that. That party you all ran of the bully squad.
True. So, it's a good one, for sure. I'll be having more builds coming out here soon. The beginning of this year has been rough, to say the least. Not only was I taking a little bit of a break at the beginning of the year, because ad revenue is also just, gone. There was no point in really working on video content because, other than just working on the channel in general, I made barely $100 last month. I'm doing much better now. But... I took a couple weeks off, and then right when I was about ready to get started and back into things, we had a cold snap that froze our pipes, and that was just stressful. And then after that, it snowed, and we were kind of stuck in the house for a couple days after that. So it was pretty much a week straight of winter hell.
Yeah, the weather's been pretty weird as of late. Luckily it seems like it's all better. It looks nice outside. Granted, it's still 50 degrees where I'm at, but it looks nice, and that's what matters.
Yeah, I can't wait for summer, honestly, after all this.
Even though all of it's been kind of annoying, I still not looking forward to it. That's only because it gets over to 100 where I am, and I firmly believe that the weather and temp should not go over 70 degrees.
Yeah.
Too much.
At least you have air conditioning.
That's something. I would die if we didn't.
Yeah.
It's a firm no. I refuse to be in anywhere for more than a couple hours if it doesn't have AC. I overheat and I get miserable and I am not pleasant to be around if I get overheated. And I want to make sure my friends are not around me when I'm just in a bad mood.
Yeah.
I get cranky. That's true. I do just get cranky, and I would rather not have to like just deal with that in general.
And then after all that, I had like one normal week, and then it was like the anniversary of my father's passing, and my mom was in town, so we spent a lot of time, spending time with my mom, relaxing, and just kind of getting through it. So it's like, but that's all done. We hopefully won't have crazy weather, and hopefully everything remains fine with the family, and I can just get to work. Speaking on work, I recently received a board game from Paizo to review, and I played it last night, and I will have a review of Elemental Stones tomorrow. So already got that working, and I don't know if I want to blow the lid yet, but I guess I'll say it now. I'll probably end up saying it again later. If everything goes accordingly, we'll also be having a guest appearance next month from one of the more important people from Paizo.
I'm
So
very
that's going to
excited.
be very fun.
I'm real excited. Despite even like just having a Paizo person on, having a guest on, there's just a lot of reasons to be excited.
The John Paizo. It's a John Paizo. Oh, crap. Yeah, the Paizo Golem. He has a name. I can't remember. There is a name for that golem, though.
I remember learning that like a long while ago.
I learned
Like
it
on an
at
old table.
PaizoCon, and I have forgotten already.
Same.
But, yeah, and I'm going to do my best to get at least a... I'm going to try to at least have a guest, like, every month. At least up through 2 Gen Con. I don't think I'll be able to get anyone, really, at Gen Con time. But up until then, I'm planning on talking to as many people from Paizo about the new books coming out, because we got tons of stuff out. I want to talk about the God stuff, which we're going to talk about some today. And I want to talk about Starfinder stuff, too. So I have a lot to chat with some of the people from Paizo, and their company is so wonderful. They're willing to hop out and chat with a channel like our size. And to be fair, our channel, I think, will be growing pretty rapidly this year as the new books come out. I should double check to see if I have the Monster Core yet. I'm supposed to be receiving it soon, because I'm going to be talking about dragons and making a bunch of videos on all the new dragons soon.
It'll be cool. I'm really excited to just learn about the different dragon classification.
Yeah, it does not seem like I have it yet. But I should be receiving that book at some point in the near future. Bloodlords is really fun. Just started Season of Ghosts as well. Yeah, the APs, I would love to be able to talk about the APs. But I feel like I have to make choices when it comes to how much content I'm covering. And I'm already covering like other tabletops in addition. So I feel like AP stuff would just take up too much of my time, unfortunately. Maybe in the future, if I ever get like an editor, I would love to cover more stuff. You know, it's funny. I was thinking to myself, I was like, I can't wait to get an editor so I could start doing more things. Like
Yeah.
I recently was just like, I should have a board game corner on the channel, just like where I review board games and stuff like that, because I think that'd be really fun too.
You got enough board games for it, and like a lot of really cool ones.
Yeah, for sure. Plus, like, what better than to be a YouTuber and get board games for free for review copies, right? So that's something I'm thinking about doing in the near future. Well, not near future, in the future as well. But that's definitely gonna have to come at a later time. As unless it's something like this one I'm reviewing from Paizo, I just can't be spending a bunch of time reviewing board games. But I would like to in the future for sure, and I'd like to open up more production like stuff around that. So we got a lot planned coming this year. Like I'm not going to. Oh God, what's the saying? I can't remember the saying at this moment, but crap, it's like right there on the tip of my tongue.
Like
Anyway,
rest on your laurels, or I don't even
no,
know.
it's like I'm not playing or something along those lines. There's a big meme about it with Helldivers right now, actually. But anyway, uh, like next month I'm gonna have probably a couple to a few videos on the monsters. I'm gonna be covering the new dragons and everything. Don't play Helldivers. It's my turn.
Get off the game. Let me play.
To be fair, I've been playing Last Epoch, which has also been having server problems.
Every
So
game's been having server problems.
yeah, it's because there's so many really good games coming out right now.
True. Like, I mean, gotta say, except for literally one day that I tried to play Helldivers, skill issue. I've had no server problems.
Just that good.
Yeah, just that good of a Helldiver. The game wants me.
Yeah. You're almost level 10.
I am almost level 10.
Can't wait till you're level 20. And you can help me with the railgun.
I do want the railgun.
Railgun's really good. But yeah, so like a couple videos are coming out with that. Then I believe in April, How the Wild comes out. And I'm going to do a video on the new ancestries coming out. I'm going to be doing a video on each of the new archetypes coming. It'll be nice to cover archetypes again. I'll finally be able to get to start covering some of the archetypes. Oh, in other big news, Archive and Nethys is announcing this Sunday when they're going to officially be done with the changes to the website.
Oh shit. That's big actually. That'll make our jobs a lot easier because
Yeah.
that's our biggest hurdle for our Tuesday game.
So that's going to be huge. I'll probably make a video when it's done too, just to let people know that Archive of Nethys is back. And to probably like properly explain to people why it's taken so long, because a lot of people are just unaware of everything that goes into it. So probably make a video on that. And then after April, I think in May, what other book was there? Oh, the Qianxia stuff are coming out, right, in May? I have to double check real quick.
I think that sounds kind of right.
And the Qianxia stuff are... Oh, no, they're coming out in April. Oh, then is How the Wild coming out in May? How the Wild is in May. I got them reversed. So, Qianxia comes out in April, which is going to have both the World Guide and the character guide, which is super hype because we're getting more archetypes, new ancestries in that one. Then in May, How the Wild comes out, and I'm going to be reviewing that. And then June, I have a brief window to chill, and not even really, before Player Quarter 2 comes out in July. So, and then after that, we're probably going to see in August some Starfinder content actually on the channel. Because Gen Con is going to be releasing the Starfinder playtest. So I'm going to check that out. I'll probably give a review on the playtest stuff too. And then we're going to have the War of the Immortals stuff coming out sometime this fall.
It still hurts that War of the Immortals is that far off.
Yeah. But there's so much coming in between now and then.
Yeah, there's a lot, like, and it's a lot of cool content that I'm excited to see. Man, I want the exemplar.
Yeah.
And I want it now.
So, with that, my year is pretty busy because not only do I have to get the stuff, I have to read everything and all that, but I'm also like covering Lancer content, and now that things are kind of slowing down for me personally, I can spend a little bit more time with the Lancer stuff, and I'm going to do a Lancer build like feature video. And so if you want to participate in the Lancer build video, join our Discord linked in the description or below on Twitch. And what we're going to do is we're going to have everyone put their builds into the Lancer build channel. And then we're going to pick our top 10. I'm going to pick 5. Alex will pick 5. And then we're going to randomly pair them off. And we're going to have like a tournament style. Which mech would win, voted by the Discord. And then what license level? I am debating. I think
It's like
I'm
6 or 9 feels
like. I think I might just go with 12. Just the make your best possible Lancer build at max stats with everything you can want in it. Because I want to see some cracked out frames. So we're going to do that. We're gonna have a big voting thing. We're gonna make this big thing on the Discord, and then after the first round, we'll essentially have our top 5 equivalently, and they'll get put into a video. So, and in that video, I'll go over what each of the mechs do, and it's not like I don't want to hear what all your pilot can do. I want one frame and its kit. That's it. You can put your talents on, and your pilot skills, but I don't need to know about like the 3 frames or whatever your pilot can make at license level 12. So, also,
the state of your pilot doesn't totally matter because it is Lancer.
Also, lore. Give us stories for your characters, for their mech, for everything, and they'll probably play into some of the factors as well. So we're gonna do that. I'll also make a video announcing it on the channel, and I think I will start that next month, like in March. So that'll be like over the course of March, we'll be doing that. So if you want to participate in our community event, go ahead and join the Discord linked down below. And I'll also be finishing up with my Lancer videos. I gotta make 2 more Lancer videos, how to play Lancer video and a how to GM Lancer video. And then I move on to Vampire.
Yeah, for the Lancer community thing, I'll Probably when you do that, I'll put a thing up on my channel too, because like I probably will be making. I feel like I want to make a couple like more Lancer videos. I want to make. I have one idea that I'm definitely doing is the fun fact for every Lancer mech. Like one just little lore tidbit. It's just reading through the flavor text for each mech is just such a fun time. And each one has like such a good flavor text that shouldn't be ignored. And also to get more people to be like, "Hey, recreational reading of CompCon is a great time." You don't just need to do it for rules.
True. True.
And then yeah, for vampire, gosh, like vampire, like God, vampire rules and like the book, gross. Vampire lore, pretty high. I would know. I've been slacking on my vampire lore videos for a bit. I'm going back into it, and I've been reading about Clan Tremere as of late. I gotta say, Clan Tremere, the best, but good lord, they are also like the dumbest people alive, which is peak wizard.
Yeah.
It's like
I've never met someone so smart who could be so stupid.
Honestly, every time I'm like reading their lore, it's like, how can you make the logical but also the absolute stupidest play at the same time? And also the story of their like turning is like there's the whole story of their turning is also just one guy being like, damn, our magic doesn't turn us immortal anymore. Anyways, I'm gonna make a creepy, gross ritual, and like, okay, I need to like kidnap vampires to do it. Which one do I do? I know the vampire clan that enjoys torturing people and holds the biggest grudges, the Zamiski. Yeah, that's a good idea. That won't backfire. And then I'm gonna host the ritual and not tell anyone in my mage circle. That sounds like a better idea. Man, oh man, Diablery's pretty cool. Who do I Diablerize? Maybe the guy that everyone likes. That's a good idea. It all worked out though, I guess. Though honestly, the only reason that the Tremere are in the powerful position that they are is because when the Camarilla was formed, the Camarilla, like at the time, like as they're forming, looked around at the Tremere and like, damn, all the people we hated in your organization are dead. So like we don't have anything against you. So I guess you're good. What a fucking god. World of Darkness is insanely goofy. I mean, also the Tremere are like one of the most banned clans. I keep reading around of like, I mean, Seattle only recently allowed them back in. Like I think in like 2012, 2014, I don't know. It was whenever Alec Cross got promoted to Prince. Because Alec Cross let them back into Seattle.
But all right, so let's talk about Pathfinder news.
Yeah, Pathfinder.
A lot going on. So one thing, I was just on the website kind of brushing up on some of the stuff that's happened recently. Just today, they've announced their digital adventure previews for both their society play and for their and for some other stuff. What I really like is it seems like their society play is currently working on the meta plots for what's coming up in War of the Immortals. So if you're in society play, we got some very fun stuff. They say here, this month the Equal Exchange's meta plot deepens further as a team of Pathfinders is sent to a strange island that defies all scrying and divination magic. The team is there to document whatever may have been left behind in a laboratory known as Seville Center, previously run by a now defunct Conference Z, the occult research section of the Aspis Consortium. So that sounds pretty cool. And then they also have a bunch of Pathfinder agents who are being marked as if they have the Sun Orchid Elixir, which, if you're unaware, is the kind of potion of eternal youth in the setting. So I'm very excited to see what comes out of those. So if you like adventure play, society play, let me know, actually, because I'm not super into it, but I am curious how they're moving the plot, because obviously they're planning for it to run into everything that's going on currently. So that's really cool. Next, they've been releasing a ton of information in a little blog they call the God's Reign Prophecies.
Yeah, I've been keeping an eye on that one.
And they are marking off every so often another god that is safe from dying in the War of the Immortals storyline. So, the three gods, as Andrew here has said earlier, that have been marked as safe is Osmodius, which I'm not surprised about whatsoever.
Honestly,
Osmodius is definitely he's just a fun character to have in your setting. He's super evil but so lawful that you can't be mad. Like there's just no better way for devils to act. Also, like, if they do anything with Osmodius, then Chiliax is gonna get involved, and they don't seem like they're planning on doing anything with Chiliax as of right now or into the future. My Pathfinder Society group is actually just running Crown of the Cobalt King right now, so I probably won't be doing Pathfinder Society adventures for a while. That's fair. Crown of the Cobalt King is also a very good adventure path. I've been hearing a ton of good stuff about it, so that's incredibly fair. The next god that got marked as safe was Pharasma, which also makes sense, god of death. It would be poetic for her to die, because that's just kind of her whole thing. But I feel like if they were to kill Pharasma, it would just be one of those standard, like, you kill the god of death storylines that have been kind of done to death already.
it's like the story of like what happens when the Grim Reaper dies or is put away. Basically, it's kind of done.
And while I do think that would be interesting, I don't think that that's what they want to do with this necessarily. I think if the god they're going to kill is a god where their death is not necessarily world shaking, but is going to rile the divinity up. Because I feel like what they want with War of the Immortals more than anything is for it to be like an issue that kind of revolves outside the realm of mortal influence. And if it was death, that would be like very much tied to what's happening to the mortals. So, and the third most recent god to be saved is Caden Callion, and that is 100% reasonable, because he's this drunken god. He's a guy who, if I read the story correctly, he actually didn't pass the Starstone tests, but so many people believe that he did that he gains divinity.
What a Chad.
Yeah.
Like, he's very cool, and I know we talked about it before. It's just also that same idea of his death is it doesn't really do much. It wouldn't shake anything up. It'd just kind of be like, oh yeah, that drunk guy died. And a lot of mortals would be sad, sure, but like his followers would be sad. That wouldn't like fuck with cosmology or like really. I don't think it'd carry a storyline.
So those are the three who are currently off the chart. And just real quick, for about 10-15 minutes or so, I just want to talk about some of the other gods. And, like, let's try to do our best to suss out Like, which gods won't die and which god might die. I know you have your theory, Alex. So go ahead, start us
Yep.
off. Why is it going to be Nethys? What's your
Well,
big brain reasoning for that?
Nethys is going to die because a long time ago I said that Nethys is going to die as their way of updating the site archive of Nethys, and like they're gonna usher in the sites and all that with a big ol' update, kill him, and then boom, everything gets updated, and then they have new branding and all that. Is that gonna be the reason, like, and all that? Probably not. Do I know enough about Nethys to like actually give a standard reason of why he's gonna die? No. I'm also vaguely aware of what his domain is. Magic, maybe? I don't know. Have I looked it up? Am I going to look it up right now? Probably not. I still think it's magic, I think. Knowledge? But like, he's going to die because I said he a while ago, and I'm doubling down. Every day, we're getting closer to it. I don't know enough about the other gods to care. My other answer is on Sarenrae because that's the critical role answer, and it would be funny.
Funny enough, my theory is also something I'm just doubling down on at this point. Because I want Torag to go. I feel like that would be a crazy shakeup for dwarves. And I so much have dwarves kind of been ever present and like have had a bunch of things happen in the past. But very rarely has there been ever like a real dwarf-centered storyline that I feel like any audience ever gets to like partake in. Also, I just think it would be interesting. To see what would it be. But I don't think it will be Torag. I don't think there's enough reason to, but at the very least, his passing I think would stir up the gods in some form or fashion. I don't think they're gonna kill Nethys because I just don't think Pathfinder wants to mime D&D with the death of Mystra over and over again. So I feel like they're just going to avoid it purely for that fact alone. But
I bet they'll do it cooler as a one-up to D&D.
But I've been looking over a lot of the gods, and I came to a realization there's just a lot of human gods. Just a metric ton of them are human or human like enough. My biggest fear right now is that they're planning on killing Aurori. Because Aurori is kind of a version of like the Bodhisattva from Hinduism. And his story mimics the same as Shiva, only he didn't become like a god of destruction. Also, of all the gods on the sheet, he's honestly one of the most boring looking ones, to be honest. And yeah, it's true. There are a couple that are just ascended humans, like Imodar, Kid and Callian. But I feel like Aurori has a good chance of going, and they might just pick like a more Hindu or Eastern inspired god to kind of fill his spot.
I feel like that would make sense.
It sucks because Aurori's actually a badass. He's actually really cool. I think one of the biggest contenders though is the death of Shaylin. And that's because of I believe in the Starfinder setting, Shaylin and Zon-Kuthon kind of have fused into a singular deity. And so with Starfinder coming over to essentially a Pathfinder 2E compatible version, a lot of people are thinking that they might, do that as a bridge for the combination of the two. Of both gods and the settings. So very interesting. Now, gods I think that are like 100% safe. Lamash 2 I think is generally safe. Mother monsters, all that kind of stuff. I don't think killing her really benefits the setting in any way. And she's just interesting. Really, really cool. Rovagug also, I don't think makes sense. Because they already, like, tried to defeat Rovagug and failed. And War of the Immortals does not sound like something that killing Rovagug would cause. If anything, it would be everyone would cheer because like Rovagug is probably one of the most hated deities by other deities.
Maybe that's why. Maybe it's because all the gods are so hyped about it that like the followers get really mad and then start some bullshit.
Maybe. Who knows? But yeah, I don't know. I don't think they're going to kill Zon-Kuthon. I don't think that makes sense. Gorum, I think, would be a terrible one. Everyone loves Gorum. He's the god of war, essentially. Norgorber is just too interesting of a deity to remove. Another ascended person, probably human, but unknown. God of the skin saw cult. All that kind of stuff. I feel like removing him would just remove a lot of stuff. I don't think they'll get rid of Callistra. Because, again, just another god that if she disappears, a lot of people, I don't think it'd cause an upheaval in the gods. Desna, maybe. Desna has at least... Desna's like the goddess of transformation and rebirth and all that kind of stuff, so it would be poetic. I don't know. A lot of people want Sarenrae to go, and Sarenrae has some deep ties on the D&D side, so there's that possibility as well.
I don't know enough about Sarenrae to have like an actual opinion. I only think it'd be funny.
It won't be Sarenrae. I'll fight Paizo. So I don't know. It's they've done very well at keeping everyone on edge. I definitely think though that there's been some gods on the list, many of which they've already eliminated, that people knew they weren't going to take out. Asmodeus is safe, so Asmodeus is not going to get the axe.
Yeah, in these like opening bits, it's definitely the mark off the gods that like we can all look at and be like, yeah, there's no shot.
If it does not go to war, it's crazy to me sometimes seeing how many people are really into the Pathfinder gods. I've never been one for gods in these kind of settings. I don't like when gods in a setting are too human, too mortal in a way. I like my gods like I like my elder deities. Unnoble and unknowably vast.
It depends. It also is kind of fun to have that like present relationship. It is kind of nice. And like having that story, especially like as someone who was like raised very religious, there is some appeal to that. But
I mean, that's valid for sure. Not my kind of thing, but like,
yeah,
A god is not as impressive if you can kill it, you know?
That is true. That's just a powerful, like, fella.
Yeah, it's a demigod in my eyes. Uh, Also, Paizo's been releasing more information from Bickham Studios about their next game that's coming out, uh, Abomination Vaults. That is the ARPG top-down teammate, kind of like X-Men Legends style game, where you can fuse abilities and such like that.
Yeah. Looks like a decent time. Multiplayer, at least.
So that's interesting. I'll be looking into it. I've seen that Bickham Studios has been doing a lot of updates for uh the Survivor game, so I might jump back in and check that one out. But I don't know, I wasn't left super impressed. It was a good time waster. It killed like 10 hours, I think, for me, maybe. We'll have to see. I mean, I definitely think they could do a lot more, for sure. We'll have to see how it goes. The RPG will also be interesting. Uh, and actually, you know what? Well, okay, let's talk about more interesting news. Uh, New Dragon stuff has been being released recently. They've been talking about a bunch of new dragons that they're planning on going into. And there's a lot of fun ones. The Mirage Dragon, the Fortune Dragon that embodies direct control over magic and magic items, which is pretty cool.
Mm.
There's a bunch of stuff coming out in Monster Core for the dragons, and I feel like with a stronger draconic like appeal, Pathfinder might just become the better dragon game, in my opinion. Like the game that has the better dragons in it.
I hope, because I hope, because like there's so many cool dragon ideas you could hit. I mean, look at all the cool ass dragons you got in like Elden Ring. I don't see them just being in base like D&D. Like, where the fuck my Lich Dragon? Where my undead dragons?
Right. Well, to be fair, D&D does have different dragons too, and they even have Lich dragons. In fact,
Yeah, but they're all like like they're green and red and blue.
No, well, maybe. I mean, I think the Lich dragon in the setting is a red dragon, but it doesn't really matter anymore. I don't know. It's like I will have to see. I admit D&D does have a lot of other dragons, not just the chromatic or the metallic as well. But Paizo's coming out with some banger dragons, so I would be very surprised to see them at least not be in competition. There's some really good ones, like the Umbral Dragon in our Tuesday game, because we started our season 3 of Riptide on the channel here. The players are fighting some crystal dragons, which is pretty fun. And in a big mess of battle where there's a bunch of battlefield objectives. I'm actually very, very happy with how it's been going so far.
It's cool. I can't see the crystal dragon. Granted, I'm looking at some spiders, but
yeah, you guys are defending a giant statue from some spiders. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of potential with the dragon stuff. I will be making dragon videos on the channel for any of those who are curious what is appearing on the monster core. They've also been talking about because they're remastering a bunch of monsters from the legacy version because of OGL business. They've been just taking their time to really what was the best way to put it? They've been making a lot of creatures that were based on mythological creatures before, essentially, or loosely based on, more closer to the actual myths and legends that they came from. So we're going to see more culturally inspired versions of monsters in the monster core, and I'll be going over some of the biggest changes that happen in the book as well to many of the monsters that we've come to know and love over the years. So I'm very excited to see what they're planning on doing with a lot of those. I think there's a lot of potential for some really, really cool things, and I really like their approach. I'm glad that we're moving away from the D&D isms of monsters that we've met up until this point, because you know what, I'm fine with D&D just being the source of that and not every fantasy game that comes out.
Yeah, because like honestly, more my shit is I want to see like the cultural, the historical, and the mythological aspects more, because that's always the stuff I love. As someone who just absolutely adores like myth, anthropology, and like history, that's stuff I look into and research in my own time for fun. And so taking inspiration from that is really fun, which is where, God, that one thread from the man whose name I get mixed up every
Michael
once
Sayer.
in a while. Yeah, Michael Sayer. I get it, Mark Seifter and Michael Sayer's name mixed up every once in a while.
That's fair.
It's just like that thread of being like, hey, do you want to know the actual origin of some of these creatures, like where they actually come from? And it's like, oh my god, yeah, it's just kind of a recursive loop of some games, huh? Like the reveal, like him saying, yeah, by the way, George R. R. Martin is the origin of Githyanki. It's like, what, huh? Okay, I never thought of that. I never realized that. I really prefer this approach, because then it's like, oh shit, this is a cool ass monster. It's from where? And I can look into it on my own.
Yeah, it's crazy. And yeah, the new ancestries coming in the Qianxia book are pretty cool. They've also released in a one of their live like chats. One of the new archetypes that are coming out, which I guess is a magical girl style of class.
Nice.
I'm trying to find the name for it.
Imagine someone had a great time at Paizo just designing that.
I'm very excited. I mean, I don't even have the Impossible Lands book, and so much really cool stuff has come out of the Impossible Lands book that I know the Qianxia stuff is going to be really cool. Plus, they have a whole bunch of Eastern descended writers and people who are from the cultures to write about it, which I think really adds to the general flavor of the experience. And I'm excited to see what they do with the Tanuki, honestly, because the Tanuki from Japanese mythology is a very fucked up creature.
Aren't a lot of them.
Yeah, not many of them fly with their nutsack.
True.
So, you know.
It was very fun seeing, just as a child, walking around Japan, seeing Tanuki out and about, being like, oh, this is really fun, and then learning on the schoolyard the truth.
Yeah.
As a young Mormon boy, being scarred about that information. Or not, probably not scarred. I think I just probably thought it was funny.
I've been hearing some good things about the Seasons of Ghost stuff too. That's been coming out. That's the current like major adventure path that's been going on. Lots of really fun things coming from there. The whole Archive of Nethys thing bothers me because literally I don't know if there's like archetypes sitting out there that I just don't know about.
Yeah, it's
And
harder to keep track.
and as the guy who's the archetype type guy, having there be archetypes I'm unaware of just bothers me.
When Archive of Nethys update day is gonna be very fun to see.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, I will definitely be making a video when that gets announced so that people are aware when it is back up and running. And yeah, I mean, other than that, there's just a lot of stuff to look forward to. I'm definitely excited for all this stuff. And so I recently played Elemental Stones for the review video, and the one thing I did notice from the game is it's very inspired by the anima setting, or the Pathfinder setting. And that's something that I think makes it really cool. I like the idea of like being able to play board games and really feel the source material when you're playing it, especially a game like Elemental Stones that's very simple by design.
Yeah, because I know you referenced it when you were telling me about it. Like, it's related to a different game that I've never heard of. And also then when you were explaining what the concept of the game is, it also looked like one of those games you could like, at least us when we're all like hanging out, we play a lot of board games. We could probably crush out a good few games in like an hour.
Yeah. Well, I mean, pretty much it is a fast-paced, a fast-paced version of like Go Fish in a way. But rather than like taking cards and trying to take other people's cards to make sets, you're placing tiles on a board in specific patterns so that you can play a pattern card from your hand to get points.
Hmm.
With a 4-player game, it took like 20 minutes and it felt very hectic to do. Felt like it was really hard to get everything you wanted done.
Okay.
So it's interesting for sure. I'll talk about it a lot more in the video I have planned for tomorrow. But I'm definitely looking forward to it. Also, for all my Pathfinder players here, I will be releasing, I believe, Saturday or next Monday, a War Priest build because the War Priest got updated in the remaster, and it's time I made a build for the War Priest. So that's going to be a pretty good build, IMO, I think. It's going to be a lot of fun. It definitely, with all the new feats, man, War Priest got so many really good feats that just allows you can play almost a better paladin, like D&D style paladin, as a War Priest now. It's kind of crazy.
Huh.
So I can't wait for all the stuff coming out with Paizo. And Starfinder, I think, is going to be another really fun game to look into, especially because now it's going to have the updated rulebook that plays like Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And now you just have, at least if you're already a Pathfinder player, a very accessible sci-fi setting that you can mess around with. And some of the classes, like the Solar, are really good. Or the Solarian. Whatever.
Oh, yeah, that class looks so fun. That's the one I'd play immediately. It's like I'm so excited because that was my takeaway from when we played Starfinder. Was like, man, I wish there was a Starfinder 2. I just want this to be more like Pathfinder Second Edition.
The number of games I would fuck with if it just had Pathfinder's rule set. Like, I'm definitely not a single system for every setting kind of deal, but man, if a bunch of people are copying D&D's homework to play games, man, just have a bunch of people copy Pathfinder's homework, because I would fuck with so many games more if they were like adaptations of Pathfinder's systems.
I do want games to be a little crunchier, but not like uh not like Shadowrun crunchy.
Yeah,
I feel like Pathfinder crunchy is a good crunch.
I think so too.
Like,
I think
yeah,
it's enough crunch to really get what you want out of it, but not so much crunch that you feel like you need to break out Excel to make your character sheet.
because like I can get why, I mean, even just Pathfinder's crunch can turn people away, but
For sure.
everyone's level is like different, and I'm at least feel like I'm pretty easy to please when it comes to a tabletop game, because my end all like want is just the group to be good, and like and I also just I don't know, actually just like rules light. That's what I also prefer, because it's really interesting. I love Pathfinder, but I also am a person who oftentimes believes that like having a lot of rules in your system does sometimes interact with the game in a way that makes it feel like the game is a lot more of the game is getting in the way of like the tabletop sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know. That's always my thing, because you honestly play more crunchy games than you do non-crunchy games.
Yeah, it's because that's what a lot of games that like we just play.
True.
And also,
I feel
don't
like
know.
you say you like rules light because you're just afraid of overcrunch in games.
I mean, yeah, if you're talking about like Shadowrun, because that was
No, for sure.
very crunchy experience.
Don't-
I didn't like.
I'm like, it's not like I'm trying to call you out. It's more just like, I get it though. I understand that overcrunching games is something that it's like having a acquired taste in a thing, because there's a lot of overcrunch games I feel like when you get mastery of, it's not so bad. But it's like Anima's a really good example, because Anima is a overcrunch game.
It is, yeah.
There's so many systems, and so like your character sheet is a point buy system with hundreds if not thousands of points, and in order to make a good Anima character, you really have to like fiddle the system to get it just right. And if you don't, you can make an utterly terrible character. So, but when we learned about it enough and it became easier, it's like, oh yeah, I can make an Anima character in like no time. I could do like literally anything. That's really cool. But yeah. Especially because Anima is also just horribly balanced and not everything works, and there's not even some tables for things they say they need tables for.
The game is inherently busted.
Yeah, it's like, if I was to go back and try to learn Anima nowadays, I would get so frustrated and stop trying to learn, because I have games like Pathfinder that just feel so much better put together and so much less effort. And honestly, the barrier of failure is very high. You can't fail unless you really, really try to in Pathfinder. But I feel like if I looked at Anima nowadays, I'd be like, oh god, who would play this? Ironically, considering it's the game that I probably still have currently played most in my life and have had the best tabletop experiences in my life to this date.
There's just something special about how janky it is, man. I don't know.
I don't know if it's about how
there's something
janky
about
it is. I think it's just the game inspires you to do interesting things.
I think it's because it's something I talked about in the video I made on it. It's something you've talked about too. It's the aspect of every single layer of anima requires that you and the people who wrote the book gave a shit in some way. So cuz like to get into anima, the GM has to care because
Yeah.
have you seen the book? And
Yeah.
the writers clearly care, sometimes a little too much, especially cared a little too much about whatever new anime they watched in 2003,
Yeah.
and then like or cared a little too little about whatever rule table that they referenced but then didn't finish writing in Excel. And then like and then you get that aspect, and then to create your character, it forces the player to care to actually create the bullshit that they want to do, because you can have everyone make like, all right, everyone, we're gonna have you all play like, I don't know, a warlock. Everyone's playing a warlock, and they're all gonna come to the table with a different style of character, like
Yeah.
just easily. So like in all aspects, it's just care, to where I feel like it just it's forced investment is what on every element, and just also God, there's so much charm intermixed throughout a lot of it. So it just there's something special to it. But also anima is one of those things where you're like, man, what a beautiful dumpster fire. This is my dumpster fire though.
Yeah.
You shouldn't get close to it. Don't breathe those fumes in.
Honestly, like I keep saying it's some of the best experience I've had. I now I think about it, it's also some of the worst experiences I've had in tabletop
Yeah,
as well. And it's just because everyone needs to be on the same page. If
it does.
everyone
And like
is
that's just how it is.
yeah, if everyone's not on the same page, you're just not gonna have a good time. And so like I feel that fear you have for like overcrunch, because like in anima I'm just afraid to let other people touch it, because I just don't know what kind of horrible mess they're gonna make. And like from what I've seen on like anima forums back in the day when they still had those, uh man, power gamers were having their best life in that, and it horrified me to see what they were capable of.
Yeah, it's a game that if you understand, you can go absolutely buck wild. I truly do believe that Anima is a game that is like an absolutely beautiful time that you should never play.
Yeah.
And at least getting yourself like a PDF bundle, like just I do it. I give people out the folder of just the PDFs, and like, hey, you're writing out your stuff, and like, hey, you want some inspiration of just shit for homebrew stuff for like tabletop games or your campaign? You should read through this. Just read through this wild horse shit. Just have a fucking blast. And then
Yeah.
when people do, they come back and they're like, "What the fuck is this?" And like they're showing me stuff. I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, I know, right? You got to the summoning.
Yeah. Yeah. Summoning is wild.
Oh yeah, you found the key ability stuff. Yes. By the way, here's the key ability book. Yeah, here's the rules on making your own key abilities.
Which like is super cool if only it wasn't broken.
I know, right?
It's just like, man, I don't know how to challenge a party when they can attack 7 times in a game with degrading defenses. It's awful and terribly balanced, and you can't do the same back to the players because then they just die. There's
Yeah.
no defense against it. It's just everyone has a unstoppable spear to gouge each other with. It's yeah. But, you know, I so when it comes to like Pathfinder and when it comes to like Starfinder, I like the rules set. I think it's really good. I think it's really clean, and I think more important than anything, I don't think it necessarily overcomplicates everything. Now, that comes from someone who also just enjoys games that have a little bit more heft to them. If you're used to playing rules light games, I can definitely see how it can be frustrating, because you're like, I climbed this building, and they're like, all right, let's get into the climbing rules. Make a strength or make an athletics check. and you succeed. You climb 5 feet. That doesn't sound satisfying at all.
Nah.
And while there are ways to make your character really, really good at climbing, and the complication of the rules kind of add value to that, I can definitely see how that is fun. Just like how when your character falls unconscious and you just drop everything you're holding, I understand the reason behind that, but I think that's just a dumb rule, and I don't
Yeah, I'm
use
not
it.
a fucking Diablo enemy. I don't just explode with loot when I die.
Well, I mean, it's not even about that. It's more just like the player is going to get back up, usually. So, what happens? All right, hey, tense battle time, right? You went down, but your ally brought you up. Now you have to spend an action to stand up, and then you have to spend an action to grab your weapon, and then you can do something. And
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
if you're using a sword and board or 2 weapons, then you have to spend another action picking up your other thing, and that's your whole turn is standing up, pretty much.
And
That's
then not even to
terrible.
put it like, like it's a tense situation. Oh yeah, all your party can do is just like give you the bare minimum heal and just pick you up minorly. Then oh, you stood up, you did all that, and now you're just bonked right back down.
Right. And the problem is it doesn't affect game balance. Like
No.
there's so many people who argue about things that are so silly because it doesn't actually affect how combat is balanced in the game. And again, we've had the conversation a long time ago about, not a long time ago necessarily, a couple months ago, about like this whole simulationist idea of tabletop, of you need to simulate real life as much as possible for your game to have any validity, that some people in the industry seem to think it is.
Yeah, it's just weird.
And it's like, I want to have a good time. I want to tell an epic story with lots of fighting. You know what isn't exciting? Me reminding the GM every, couple hours in game that I'm going to the bathroom.
Yeah, it simulating out as best I can like a real experience. Well, like granted, having a like every week or whenever you can all get together, transporting yourself into an immersive just fantasy world experience. Fucking dope. Very cool. I am in a game that like we are basically like very self-driven in a very detailed homebrew setting. It's very cool. I am in a game that is very simulationist. But like that doesn't mean every game has to be that.
Well, and it's not even
Yeah.
that simulationist, because you're also just playing D&D 5e.
Yeah,
Like,
it's fucking D&D. It's still a game. We have arcs, we have plots. We have things that take us to locations to go explore things.
and so like I like Overcrunch, I definitely think is the thing that even plagues Pathfinder, to be honest.
Yeah, there's some stuff in Pathfinder. Like, I mean, because there are every once in a while like some feats where I'm looking at and I'm like, I guess I could see the very rough or very situational reason why this is here. But every once in a while, I look at a lot of Pathfinder stuff and it's like, feels like this is just here to exist rather than like deserves to fill a slot or like rules padding rather than like actual, I don't know, like does this feat need to exist like in the, I might have one session that this feat could actually do, or even then like I don't even know if it's like a specifically like a overcrunch, but it's something that I've also been kind of thinking about of like, man, one of my things with a lot of like roll like D20 systems that I've noticed, and it's something I've talked about you and just how it comes down to game feel, is how I feel like a lot of D20 systems, whenever I'm playing them, D&D is specifically the worst offender of this. Pathfinder's a little better. Is how a lot of them kind of feel very XCOM at its worst at times,
Yeah.
where it's like, how do I balance this encounter? I know everything you want to do in this encounter has a 30% chance.
Yeah.
Like, that's fun. Well, like, yeah, because of action economy, all of you will have a chance to do this. It's like, well, yeah, but you know, it certainly doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, I mean, like, we ran into that during one of our campaigns where you guys were fighting a very agile, very dodgy enemy. Does have a lot of health, and like, balance-wise, it was just as balanced as any other fight was, you know. But the problem was, you guys would just miss like 50% of the time or more, you know. And while it was likely that you guys were gonna win, because of like power and numbers, you guys just have more attacks than the creature can really dodge. You were bound to win, but it did not feel good winning. And even though that fight didn't necessarily take any longer than any other fight had, it didn't feel good because players don't feel like wasting actions. And unlike actual combat scenarios, missing with your weapon in game form feels like a waste. Well, in an actual combat scenario, it's as someone who's larped and fought people with foam weapons before, like when you're larping and swinging weapons at each other and you miss, you know, it's something where you're like, okay, I'm zoning the enemy, I'm keeping them just out of my reach, it's doing something. Or like I do it, but they block me. But that feels very tactile. That feels like I did something, and the enemy had to do something to stop me from hitting them, which feels better than swinging and just game saying no, you missed.
Yeah, it's the problem of like specifically interacting with stuff that is very it's that like hard thing, because on one hand it's like, yeah, the fix for that idea of game feel is, well, I want the game to just say yes in all situations. But then if you do that, there's no fucking game. That's not good. You don't. That's bad. That's not a fix. That's just I show up to a table and I just talk, and then the GM tells me, yes, you're the coolest. That's bad. That's not a game. That's nothing. But on the other hand, yeah, because that's the thing that specifically fucks me up, is just like wasted actions always feels like ass, which is also
Yeah,
why I hate D&D spellcasting with
yeah,
a passion, because I'm like, god, it's so lame that like D&D spells, you cast it, they save, and nothing happens. That's what Pathfinder spells are, at least something.
yeah, yeah. I think it's really good in Pathfinder, honestly, for that reason. Like you always are doing at least something, and with how the action economy and teamwork works, like even that little thing you do when the enemy succeeds your save still probably helps the entire team, which is just a good way of doing it. There's so and you know it's funny because you were just talking about it. It's one of my problems with rules light games is I hate the idea of just going to the table and feeling like my build or my character isn't inherently special because the game is so basic that like the problem could have just been fixed any other way, you know? Like in our Monster of the Week game, for instance, we have two characters that are kind of doing the same thing nowadays. We have your character and we have Quentin's character, who are both fighter characters who have defensive abilities to not get downed like immediately. And while it doesn't feel necessarily the same way, when you boil it down, you do have almost the same builds. You just play differently, which doesn't feel good to me personally. Even though there's a lot of things I love about Monster of the Week, and a lot about it isn't fighting, which is good. And there's a lot of things that happen outside of fighting. But I've seen lots of other rules like kind of games, like Blades in the Dark, honestly, when we were doing it, where it didn't feel like there was an actual reason for builds to be different because the only difference was the aesthetic of how it happens. And I want my character to feel like they're different. They can do different things and have substantial difference. That's why I like games that have a little bit more crunch to them, like Pathfinder, because in Pathfinder, even though like a fighter and a barbarian are both dealing damage and melee characters, they both act in very different ways and behave very differently on the battlefield. You know, the barbarian hits very, very hard with one, maybe two strikes, while the fighter can hit like multiple times or has other ways of locking the enemy down. And oftentimes they do it in different ways. Like the giant instinct barbarian with a reach weapon having a 20-foot reach at level 10 feels very different than the fighter who goes up and blends enemies with double weapons. You know.
True. I think honestly, one of the other bits, it's like, because I maybe it is a little unfair to say I'm a big fan of like rules light, preferring it. I think the real answer is rules light is hard carried by whoever's running it, because like if someone else is running rules light, solid chance I wouldn't be a fan of like Monster of the Week, or even I like if we ever did Blades in the Dark, wouldn't be a fan of it. I just rolled the absolute like natural 20 of who I have like as GMs for these games in our friend circle, because like Vale running Monster of the Week is great because they are absolutely perfect for like this style of game. And then like if it was someone else, like some like rando, like I'm showing up to like an adventure league for Monster of the Week, probably not the same experience. Then I feel like I'd give a lot more of a shit about the actual like game experience of it.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing, is like any game could be made good with the right friends. And
yeah. I at the end of the day, that's the part I like the most.
And I feel like my ideal game is something that flows just smoother than what even Pathfinder runs nowadays. I want scenes. I don't like turn-based necessarily. Not that it isn't fun, because like I love Lancer. I think the tactical combat's very interesting, and combat in Pathfinder can be very interesting, but it very much depends on what kind of characters you're playing. I would like a game that has gamified scenes better, where you could have more kind of like action for action kind of stuff that feels more like something is happening in the scene rather than turn-based kind of stuff. And there's a lot of people who say like theater of the mind kind of helps with that, because you stop caring about things like movements or whatever, and it's more just about like what your attacks or action types are in the round. But I don't know. Like I said, it just hasn't been done perfectly in my eyes yet. I think there's a game out there, or there will be a game eventually that does. But right now, like Pathfinder, the 2E system is just so rock solid. We got a question. Speaking of combat, question for anyone: do you like doing the math before or after the dice roll? How would you do the math before the dice roll? I would like to know in what this is referencing.
I like, unless it's just like, I don't know, trying to figure out the probability of like doing something beforehand. That's the only way I can think of.
If the idea is, do you like judging how or what your possibility of hitting is before you roll the dice, or do you just like rolling the dice and seeing what happens after? I would say probably to hit adding modifiers before. I'm sorry, I'm still not following. Okay, so yes, exactly what I was just saying, which is judging first what your likelihood to hit an enemy is before you roll the dice, rather than just rolling the dice and hoping you hit, more or less. Yeah, okay. I would say it's kind of just a healthy mix, I think, is the best for me personally, but I think generally is the best. I feel like if you're hyper analyzing every combat with every enemy, you're just taking tabletop too seriously, and you're not focusing on the important part of the combat, which is the narrative part. Because like any character can kill a goblin, but how you kill a goblin should be unique, or at least should be fun for you in the way you do it, you know?
Yeah, it's like a part that, I mean, in a video game, normally how it might come up is you don't even think about it. Like, say for a CRPG, you hover over an enemy and then it like shows you the percentage of just right then and there. Boom, you can see right away. Because every once in a while you get that feeling where after like a couple trial and errors, like, oh, okay, so I get like I already know the rough idea of what their like AC is, or like, or oh, I already know kind of what their like armor, their dodge or block ability is if it's like a contested role system. You get like a feel of it. Honestly, I feel like just not considering it in the moment is kind of my thing. When I notice it, it's like that. Oh, okay. Now I can like now I'll notice it. I'll consider it in the moment. Making the tactical decisions like as the information comes to me as like the characters how I roll. Because like I play my games and making decisions as I think my character would make those decisions, not as like the tactical war gamer that I could.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, like I don't think there's anything wrong with like
No.
knowing or figuring out what the likelihood of hitting an enemy is. Problem is like with a game like Pathfinder, the game kind of just does the math for you anyway when you think about it realistically. I know my first hit, if I'm swinging, is likely to hit. I know my second hit is more 50-50 ish. And I know my third hit is less than likely because that's just how their action multi-attack penalty works. So you don't really need to judge it beforehand. And I mean, what do you do if you're fighting an enemy that just has high AC? Be like, well, my chance isn't to hit it, or isn't great to hit it, so I guess I'll do something else. You have to kill the creature eventually. Also, math is relative to other math, right? So, if you're not likely to hit it, but you have enough teammates, if everyone just keeps rolling dice, eventually the creature goes down because your probability of hitting just goes up by number of attacks you make. So,
The only
again,
one where knowing the math beforehand, like I would say, is like ever super valuable or like deeply considered is if it's like a really important skill check and figuring out like the DC is and then going around to figure out like, okay, who's the most likely to like have this succeed.
yeah,
Because I mean, we had that. Like we had our medicine check that we wanted to make, and we were going around like, all right, what's the best way we can make this like this medicine check succeed? What's the best like way modifiers? Who's the best person to make it? Okay, cool. Now we have the decision. Let's make the roll.
yeah, and I mean, like again, like I said, it's a healthy mix. It like I think anytime you're doing a game that has any kind of skill based anything, you know, like hitting a thing is something that your character is either good or not good at in a sense. That kind of you're kind of already doing the math even if you don't know exactly when it is. And I also feel like if you're just playing the game blind, just being like, I'm going to try to hit it. It's like, it's your third attack. You're not going to hit it. Do something useful. Like, no, I'm just going to try to hit it. What if I hit? You know? That,
Yeah, imagine.
like, there's so many times I see actions get wasted because players are just thinking too linearly with the game as, like, their frame of reference rather than, like, the scene, for instance. Trying to move into an advantageous position or maybe work on a thing like set up a trap or like shoot a tree to plummet the tree on the enemy to potentially do more damage, all that kind of stuff. I feel like you can get overly into the numbers and or overly into like the base level of the game. Like I said, whether you hit or not shouldn't matter. It's what is happening in the story that matters. If you're trying to kill that creature right now because it's about to eat your best friend, you're going to swing no matter what the likelihood to hit is because that's the desperate situation that you're in. That's more fascinating to me and much more interesting than viewing it from a perspective of, Oh, the enemy is gonna down my ally, and I'm not likely to hit. Sorry, Joe. I guess you're just gonna die. You know, the numbers say I can't hit it likely, so I'm just gonna do something else and help the combat in another way. Like, it's tabletop games, especially because they're role playing games, is about the narrative. It's about the story that you're telling. So don't let the game tell you how to tell your story. The game is there to facilitate your narrative, whatever it is. Also, unfortunately, I've been in fights where I cast a spell, nope, he crit saved. Okay, I strike him, nope, your 19 on the dice wasn't high enough to hit. So sometimes enemies crit save. That's just probability. If you're rolling a 19 to hit and it doesn't hit, either one, you're just not attacking with a character that's good at attacking, or two, you're up against a challenge that your characters shouldn't be fighting.
Or your GM might be, if they're a good GM, they are probably up to something cool. Maybe there's some good intention there. If not, their balancing is fucking bad, dude. What the fuck are they trying to do? I've seen some bad GMs be like, yeah, I make like such really cool bosses. This is my really tough boss fight. And it's like, oh yeah, let me look at it. It's like, oh yeah, okay, so this is like your cool level 20 wizard rogue OC. Yeah, dude, all this is just like an unkillable thing to show how cool you are. There's nothing here. This isn't like a winnable situation. Like it's the thing that's annoying to me about. Granted, it's a skill level issue for GM stuff, but it's also the thing I see about the flaws of the Roll20, or not Roll20, but just D20 games, where I think the balancing sometimes can be a little whack. Of like, you have those situations where it's like, all right, I'm trying to balance this. I'm making this so difficult. Can you make the coin flip, the 50-50 chances? And it just feels bad, man. It doesn't feel good. Or then you get the shit ones who are like the 19s. And it's just, yeah. Hey, I don't. Sometimes it's just not fun to interact with. And also for SK, the announcements, it's just more or less just like everything that is coming out for 2024, as in like all the books, and then earlier as well talking about the gods that have been consistently marked off since at the end of the year, basically, or in like August. A god will be dead for the War of the Immortals, and on their blog they're marking off a god constantly for who is safe, and another god just got marked off safe. And then just Starfinder playtest. There's just a lot of stuff that Paizo is working on constantly. So it's just a lot of going through everything that's coming out, because like in a couple months, basically like every single month is going to have something new. It's how it's written into the APs. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, I mean, I guess if it's on your build or whatever, but like, I don't know. It's just sometimes it's how it feels with certain like, how it feels sometimes with certain like D20 systems. D&D I think is absolutely the more egregious system when it comes to it. Pathfinder can get away with it a little more sometimes, because I think Pathfinder has a better, I guess, consistency when it comes to its system, with just better numbers, and then better systems when it comes to specifically even skill checks, with a lot of skills. Like if it's your best skill, having things to like, if you fail, you don't. If you crit fail, you just fail, which I think is really nice. So if your character's like a goofy ass expert at like lock picking, they shouldn't like bungle a lockpick constantly. I've seen the lockpicking lawyer. I have not seen him crit fail a lock before. Yeah, it's I think also if you dig down into any system, every system will eventually have its like weird little issue like that. Because no game is inherently perfect, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. You say unfortunately that's how it's written into the APs or scenarios written by Paizo. We've played some now. We haven't had such struggles, and that's probably just a knowledge thing. And even when it's like a very difficult enemy, again, like a 19 should not miss any enemy that is generally balanced for. Even an enemy that's +4 above you, a 19 should hit. So, you know,
Unless your modifier is like, +4, +5.
well, I mean, even then, if it's balanced for your level, generally speaking, so it's like you're probably not flanking, probably not feinting, probably not doing the many things in combat that make you more likely to hit. Because I played them, I played through Age of Ashes, which has a really rough fight in the first book, and we managed just fine. It was a little difficult, but it was not like, oh, we couldn't hit it. So I don't know. I would have to look at the exact scenario and the setup, and I'm sure there's some way. But they have a very strict algorithm for how they design things, so like it's pretty hard. Like I said, there's some very simple things you could be doing to make your chances much better. But without the information, I can't offer, advice. And even then, like, a game doesn't need to, so this is another thing, right? A game doesn't need to be perfect in order to be fun or worth your time. Like, this is this weird like idea I think a lot of people argue in the general space of tabletop, of they're saying, well, this game is not as good as this game, so why would you play it? It's like, I don't know. I like the setting. I think the writing's interesting. I like the art in the books, and they inspire me to make an interesting character. Like, you don't not play a video game just because it's not your favorite game, right? No
Sometimes
game.
I'm just in a fun mood and I want to try something different.
Well, yeah, or sometimes a game like Inscription is not a very long game. It's like 10 hours. And while I do think the game mechanics are pretty fun, for sure, it's definitely not my favorite like deck builder game ever. And yet, after I got done playing Inscription, I was like, man, that game touched me. The ending of that game really felt impactful. I really liked what they did with that game.
Great charm to it. The guy who creates it, he has a really good skill for making like specifically that type of weird meta level style game. So I know Pony Island is another game. I wrote it off as like a YouTuber, like Let's Player bait kind of game, but apparently it's also really good.
Yeah. Like, so when it comes to tabletop, if a game looks like kind of meh, try it out anyway. If you got the resources, I'm not going to tell you to spend every cent you got on tabletop.
Wish I could sometimes, but yeah.
Yeah. But like, sometimes it's worth it. Sometimes you find something special that really creates a very fun experience. Like I said, Anima is by far not the best tabletop game I've ever played, and yet I've had my best tabletop experiences in that game.
Yeah, it's got a lot of issues, but I don't regret like a second like of the time I've given to that game. And it's even to like some games that we've played where like we've come away from it like, yeah, we play another session of it, probably not. I still had a great time with it. Just even like just hanging out with my friends because that's more the fun of it. I'm there for the tabletop hobby of it. I'm there to just have a good time, hang out with my buddies. Just that's the vibe. And also just I want more things to shift away from you need to stick to one system.
Yeah.
I wanna be able to shift around, play around with other games. It's really cool. There's so many cool little weird ones. One day, if I have just goofy disposable income, I genuinely do want to like have a collection of just physical tabletop core books. Will I run a lot of them? No, I hate jamming inherently. I just want to have them because I just really like paging through like core books.
Yeah. I mean, heck, one of the big things we do on the channel is we just every off season we pick a game. We're playing Mutants and Masterminds. Someone brought it up earlier, which is funny. We're playing Mutants and Masterminds after our current season of Pathfinder. And that's going to be a janky game, I already know. But we're going to have fun with it.
100%. I am really excited to play a character that is just my infamous needs a remake or a better sequel wish fulfillment.
Yeah.
I'm already labbing out my Cole McGrath inspired character. God, I'm so pumped. And like the it looks also it's gonna scratch the itch of the what am I trying to think? The anima ability building.
Yeah.
Stuff.
The more character crafting kind of point distribution stuff.
Yeah, I wanna like build my power, like really consider like, all right, I'm building a character who has electricity energy manipulation. What style do I want to go for? How do I want him to like manipulate electricity? I do want the same stipulation of like he can manipulate electricity, but as in he needs to absorb electricity. As in he is a literal conduit for electricity.
Mm-hmm.
I like that concept, and I'm definitely going with the superhero named Conduit. And
Fair.
so then like he needs to just like an infamous like absorb electricity from things, and like that'd be a flaw for certain aspects. Because I also love that. I love that in point buy power systems. I love the take a flaw to make something cheaper.
Yes, more tabletop games need flaws in their games.
I want my character to be shittier sometimes because I like giving the GM that tool over me.
Yeah, I mean, like it just adds personality to your character. What flaw do you have to overcome? Also, I hate when games give flaws that literally like everyone takes because they're just easy point flaws. Like Anima's guilty of that. Like
it does.
Powerful enemy, such a terrible one. I'm a mage, so I'm taking the Inquisition. They're a really powerful group, right? They would kill me on sight. It's like, yeah, no duh. They would kill any mage. So that's not really a disadvantage for you, at least more than what you're already playing with. Or like unlucky, you have a 2% higher disastrous fail threshold,
Granted, that does look like ass though.
But like
I've rolled so many times where I'm like, ooh, if I had unlucky.
Yeah, but like I don't know, it's never really been that big of a thing. Like I want games that like give me something I have to struggle with the entire time. Because it just makes interesting stories. Interesting characters.
Something I always really liked. I always thought about genuinely having a situation where I'm like, okay, GM, here's my anima character, and here is the off button to the anima character. Because like each one of them, I had my lab grown psychic, and because he's like, yeah, this kid was born in a fucking test tube, basically. Like he grew up in a sterile lab environment. Of course he's going to be like vulnerable to disease. He didn't get sick as a kid at all. So he's out finally in the environment. So like as a young teenager, suddenly out in the cold. Yeah, 100%. He has no immune system. And then the my revenant gunslinger who was killed by a guy who can manipulate venoms. Yeah, 100%. His body can't fucking deal with that. It was overloaded once, and now he is like hunting this man down, but he's still weak to his power system. I want that level. I'm hunting the man who I'm weak to.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Again, there's kind of echoing back to our earlier conversation of like, the math doesn't matter. It's what's happening in the scene that matters. Not that it can't be a part of it, sure, but like, a lot of times in tabletop situations, you're going to have a better game, win or lose, when you make a good story out of it.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that can happen in any game. Honestly, I absolutely love our current game with Monster of the Week. Like, from an unbiased position, Monster of the Week is not necessarily my type of game. Fun to play in short enough bursts, but like not anything I would want to dedicate a bunch of time to. But the reality is, the characters we have are very interesting. We've had some very big moments, especially recently, and I love my character because he's just hilarious to play.
Your character's really funny, and all. Even though I spent the entire last arc yelling at your character, just you were making me very angry.
just because my character is like, I'm not saying like perfect, but he's too well adjusted of a human being to like actually exist. And one of my favorite parts is we got like one of our party members who's just like a guy. He's just like a normal guy who works at a gas station. Bought like
literally
trail
the
mix.
Class is called the Mundane.
The Mundane. Just bought
like, picture Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. It's literally what it's inspired by.
Bought like trail mix. And was like, hey guys, you want trail mix? And my character's like, oh no, I made my own. Normal trail mixes are just not good for you, actually.
No, they're not. But Jesus fucking Christ.
Just be like, normal. Just buy trail mix. Who makes trail mix?
How much time do you have in your fucking life? Like, we have a limited amount of time on this earth, and you're at home mixing different like types of nuts and oats together. Like, you don't have anything else to do. The one that actually pissed me off the most was when you described how this man slept, and we're camping in the middle of the woods, and you described that he had headphones listening to ambience. We are outside. You are listening to ambient fucking nature noise, like white noise. Motherfucker, just listen. Just use your ears. That was the most like, why are you doing this? It was the like, God. Like the immediate fucking, I saw red.
It's great. It's perfect.
I do love him.
And that's the thing. It's just like it's so in a game where like statistically there was not that big of a difference between each party member. How we each played individually using our various features was funny. My character's ability to literally I literally had an ability where I can just, if I roll high enough, I can literally pull anything like out of my backpack that I need in a moment. And we got confronted with like a maze, and my character just pulled out golden wool to cast with as a reagent for a very powerful spell he could use. And like, that was fun. Really, really fun, and very fun in the situation. But like I said, Monster Week is, like, objectively speaking, not my kind of game. I would not have as much fun with it if we were just talking about the straight game system. But because the players are great and the GM's great, and I have a good idea for a character, which is also a big factor, honestly, the game's fun. So, like, yeah. Like, when Candela Obscura was going through the ringer, online because everyone is just like, this game is woke and it's made by Critical Role, who's known for having a very toxic fandom. It's like, it's a lesser version of Blades in the Dark. It's like, so what if it is? You can still have fun in it. Blades in the Dark, you're playing as criminals who are doing heists. In Candela Obscura, you're playing as investigators for a secret society trying to keep the world safe. Like, they're just different games, even if their rules are kind of similar.
My favorite description throughout that little event was the description of, yeah, it's the same setting idea too, because they're both dealing with the supernatural.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you know, Monster of the Week and Call of Cthulhu are pretty similar too.
Yeah.
Both have monsters in it if you really want to take it down to its absolute bare minimum and like have zero nuance in how you're looking at something.
If you want to be especially reductive, yeah.
Yeah, you want to be in a reductive ass, yeah. That was the part where, God, you cannot like a game. Like, it's okay. Just be normal and honest when you're examining. That I don't give a shit if someone doesn't like Candle Obscura. The game itself looks fine. I was getting so annoyed of just like, these reviews are just bad fucking products. That was my giant grievance.
Yeah, because like the whole thing I had with Indestructible wasn't that I didn't agree that he had some valid opinions, nor that he shouldn't have made his video. I just didn't agree with the idea that it was a review, that it was marketed essentially as a review. It was when someone clicks on a video that says review, you're expecting to get something that's supposed to objectively look at a thing and tell you whether it's good or bad, you know. And his video was not objective in any way and was very dishonest with some of the interpretations. And I was just like, you could have just named this video Why I Don't Like Candela Obscura, and I would have had zero issue with it.
Yeah. Probably would have been like just all around better.
But you called it a review, and it just feels like a very shitty review. So
yeah, it was just a bad video. It was just kind of shit, and I think I don't think he made the idea with it later, but I think he at least understands like that you know, he's gotten a lot more inflammatory with a lot of stuff how he like went about. I know that's why he briefly stopped being on Twitter.
Yeah.
It seemed like that's how he was going around a lot of it, but God, that just the video itself was just really bad.
The fact that Black Lodge Gaming made a better video about Candela Obscura from a review perspective blows my mind, because I will say Indestructible I would mark as a better general person, and honestly not a terrible guy. I had a negative experience with him, sure. I admit that. But I don't think he's a bad guy by any means.
He just made one like shitty video. Black Lodge Gaming seemed like pretty shitty human beings.
Yeah, they made a better video and were worse people.
Exactly.
You know.
Indestructible Boy seems like, in all honesty, like a pretty decent guy. He just needs to not argue shittily.
I just checked his channel now, and it doesn't look like he because after he made the Candela Obscura, he was so on the hype about like, oh, from now on I'm gonna make hardcore or like hard hitting reviews on things. Like his whole aspect from there was just good to be like an uber critique, essentially, of games. That does not seem to be what happens. Maybe on the Shadow Dark review. I refuse to watch his content because I don't trust his opinion after the Candela Obscura nonsense. He did make a video on Vaesen afterwards, which I'm glad he did because half of the Candle Obscura video he was talking about Vaesen.
I didn't learn anything about how Vaesen works or really what it was, but yeah, I do know that Vaesen existed and that apparently it's better. I don't know why though.
Yeah. So I'm
I
glad
will
he
say
made
the
that
Vaesen
video.
art looked sick though. Because it does look sick, and then when I
Yeah.
was talking about it loosely, I was told that it is very cool. And I imagine I'd be a fan of it.
It can be a cool game, and so can Candle Obscura too. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sick and tired of this idea. And to be fair, this happens in every niche kind of growing community. The MMO community has been having the same issue for over a decade now, which is, what's the next MMO? Oh, it's not perfect. MMOs are dying. Over and over and over. Happens all the time. Everyone wants the perfect MMO to lose themselves in forever, and it doesn't happen, and so they say MMOs are dying because they can't play an MMO for like years on end because nothing satisfies them exactly. When, you could just be an enjoyer of MMOs, play them while they're fun, and then move on to the next one when you're done. And tabletop is the same way. You can you can like tabletop. We played Anima. I played Anima specifically from 2011-ish to I want to say 17. Yeah, 2017. I played for 6 years Anima Beyond Fantasy. And took a break, played some D&D 5e, made some friends, Alex being one of them. Then played Anima for like another 2 years or something like that, 2-3 years. And now I may not touch it again. Who knows? If they come out with a second edition, I'll definitely look at it. But right now, Anima just seems like way too much effort for what I would get out of it.
I certainly hope they get to make the edition that they want to make.
I do too. But man, they just keep putting things in the video games.
True.
Video
I hope
games
the video game's good.
that don't work that well.
Yeah. I hope the video game is good, and I also wish down the line the video game does good enough they make a sequel, and by the time the sequel happens I have enough money that I can back it on Kickstarter and actually have my Anima character canon.
Put like, what was it, like $5,000 or something like that?
I want a quest line with Sebastian. I want my psychic in Anima.
See, that's the kind of shit that you liking. That's what tells you that the game is something special. When people are just like, I care about the game, like, general setting so much, I want my character to be involved in official material.
Exactly. And that's the part that'd be goofy, is also the fucking absolute one-upmanship of, like, the dick measuring contest that is any situation where you're like, hey, check out my character art. Oh, yeah, just like, oh, I got this cool commission. You're like, nice, nice, nice. Here's a let's play. You see that guy? That's mine. I played him.
Yeah, that's my OC.
I made him. He's there. It cost me $5,000.
Yeah. But, that's the thing, like, right? I've also felt like I wanted my characters to be in an Anima game because I like Anima that much. Never once for D&D have I felt that.
No.
And you know what? Honestly, never once have I felt that for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And it's still my favorite game currently.
I just don't know enough about Galarian. I've heard tidbits about Galarian that I'm like, oh, this shit's neat. It seems cool, but I imagine I'd you know what? I do imagine I'd fuck with Starfinder lore a lot more, though. but that's just because I like sci-fi lore a lot more than
That's fair.
fantasy lore.
That, honestly, that's what I want. I want a really, really good setting in a TTRPG that's good, like, for me. Not saying that Pathfinder's not good. It's just not for me because I'm not a big fan of the high fantasy world settings most of the time. I need something that's a little bit more pulled back. Like, Anima's high fantasy, but the world itself is mostly not high fantasy. There's just characters that are absurdly powerful.
It's like it's like a loose secret world almost.
Yeah.
In like a lot of elements, it could just be like a historical setting.
Yeah.
In like some little pockets of like some of the cities.
So, like, that's my jam. I want a setting where you have these unimaginably powerful people living in a mostly mundane world. Because, like, one of my favorite storylines that we did was the players met a very, very powerful character. And, like, the whole lesson behind his character was it doesn't matter how powerful you are. The more powerful you are, the more you have to obey everyone else's rules. Because you can't just kill everyone you don't like, because then you're left with nothing. And you can't just go all out either, because other powerful people will just take you down. So you have to learn to work in the world that everyone else lives in. Or it's just misery. And that's something that I think players in general need to understand, and especially because that's just what I don't like about Pathfinder or D&D either. It's a setting where there are so many stupid powerful people that it's just like, why do you have to do anything? I'm sure someone is around who can do it. There's no need for your character in the setting, and that's something I find very sad. Well, that's about it for today. A little bit early to end stream. But honestly, there's not much talked about. We talked about all the news. I know someone came in and asked about what the announcements were. I went through them, and going through them again would take a bunch of time. So there was nothing new as far as like a new book that was unannounced before it got announced or anything.
Yeah, nothing like brand new. It's more of, we're getting closer every week,
Yeah,
It's just the countdown now.
We're getting closer to a lot of good material because the Qiansha book is going to bring new archetypes, new ancestries, which is huge. Magic items, probably. The How of the Wild is going to bring new archetypes, new ancestries, new items as well. Add a lot more beast stuff to the games. And Player Core 2 is going to fundamentally change some of the classes. And we also have Monster Core 2, which is fundamentally changing some of the monsters that we have been going up against for years now. So, there's a lot. And so every little bit of information we can pick up. And as well, if you are all unaware, since many of you probably have joined past when I said it earlier, we will be having someone from Paizo, hopefully, if everything works out, on stream next month to chat with, which will be really, really fun. So I'm very excited for that. And I'm planning on doing that every month until like July. So hopefully we'll get a bunch of really cool information in the next coming weeks. Maybe we might learn about what D&D is even doing soon. Maybe we'll hear about Daggerheart soon. So stay tuned. It helps out the channel a lot, helps other people see this kind of content. Subscribe if you haven't done so already, and join our Discord linked below if you want to participate in some of our community events One of which is a Lancer build off where you're Lancer license level 12. You're gonna build mechs. We're gonna have a competition, and then I'm gonna make a build or a video on the top 5 performing builds. Have there been any rumblings of samurai or a ninja? I don't know yet. I would say I don't think they will be, because I think they're wanting to move away from stereotypical things. So, but that's not for sure.
I would be surprised if there's stuff that are mechanically similar. And honestly, I think the idea of them serving more like a archetype is probably the avenue they'd go down rather than like a class.
Yeah, and nothing on Inquisitors, which
no. Shame.
I don't know if they'll ever do. If I'm gonna be honest, the whole persecution thing is not the direction they're currently going. So
mechanically, they're so fun though.
I know. I love the idea. I like the idea of Inquisitors. I like the people who hunt cultists and monsters. I think that's a really cool idea. I'm a big fan of monster hunters in general. But you know, that stuff. Anyway, anything you want to leave us off with, sir, before we head out?
Yeah, if you're at all interested in lore stuff, specifically, I cover things like Warhammer 40k and Vampire the Masquerade lore. But as of late, I've also been covering Lancer. So if you're interested in just general lore content, some of the stuff that's talked about on this channel, come over to my channel over on Glue Boy. It's linked in Cam's YouTube as well. Next Monday, or I guess this Monday, is going to be when the next video drops. Specifically, it's going to be on Clan Tremere, the Vampire Wizards, and how absolutely fucking goofy they are. They're really funny. And then later on, probably a video on like Lancer or something. I have a video idea that I might actually just decide to do. I think it's a little too good to not write up. So yeah, go check me out if you're interested in learning a bit more about the worlds of these games that Cam talks about.
All right, and tomorrow I'll be releasing my review of Paizo's newest game, Elemental Stones, board game specifically, which I'm very hyped for. And Saturday or next Monday, I will be releasing a War Priest build for Pathfinder 2E. So if you want to get more build stuff for Pathfinder, like I know a lot of people are, stay tuned. But with that, we're gonna go ahead and say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night.